Welcome to Branding the Beltway. I'm Stacey Piper, a 25-year government marketing expert and the host of the podcast that helps you level up your B2G marketing game with actionable insider tips and real-world case studies. If you're in the business of doing business with the government, you're in the right place. Each episode delivers straight-to-the-point strategies from senior marketing leaders familiar with navigating the unique world of GovCon. In each episode, we'll first explore that month's topic on a macro level, talking strategy with CXOs. Then we'll deep dive into the same topic on a micro level, examining the practical approach of development and implementation. We're talking brand awareness, content strategy, and the campaign tactics that actually move the needle. Whether you're a CXO, a growth strategist, or marketing practitioner looking to strengthen your federal position, Branding the Beltway is your essential resource for driving results and winning more contracts. Let's connect strategy to execution and position your brand to win. Welcome to this episode of Branding the Beltway. I'm your host, Stacey Piper, and today we have with us Alex Love. Alex is the Vice President of Marketing and Communications from RIVA Solutions. RIVA Solutions is an IT services company providing digital transformation solutions to government agencies to solve complex problems and meet mission objectives with innovative technologies. Welcome, Alex. Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Stacey. I appreciate the invitation. So you already gave sort of the professional side, but again, my name is Alex Love. I've been in the public sector side probably for about 10 years. I've gone back and forth from the billable side of the house to the corporate side of the house. And I spent a fair amount of time outside of the government sector as well. So all of that kind of culminates in my experience and sort of my unique ability to be able to shape the cool brand that we have at RIVA Solutions and be able to have more of a, I'll say, risk tolerant brand than you might see at some other government contractors.
I love that. And what was your background before RIVA Solutions?
Yeah, so I started out in the nonprofit sector. So I don't have any marketing degrees at all. I went to school for political science and international business. And so when I was starting out my career, Washington, D.C. was a place that I had interned at in my last year of college. And I really loved D.C. It's very, very similar to the experience that I had going to school in Boston. And so I said, let's just do it. So I moved to DC with my roommate, no job, no offers, and was just kind of trying to find my way. And so I found an opportunity to write grant applications and manage some of the marketing communications for a local nonprofit. And it was a really good gateway for me to figure out what do I want to do when I sort of grow up into my career. Because I love writing. That's always been a skill set that has been a passion of mine, but I really wasn't sure how I applied that as a professional. I'll say I learned really quickly, I don't like writing grant applications. That was probably my least favorite part of the role. I really started to gear towards, how do I market this nonprofit? How do we get more donors to the mix? How do we raise more money for this cause? And so I started to very gradually shift towards the marketing communication side of the house because at a nonprofit, they just don't have the staff to do that. So I had this really cool dual role. And at the end of my 2 years there, I had very squarely decided that marketing was where I needed to go. And had started developing relationships on that side of the house. So took a job, again, outside of the government sector, working at a mobile moving and storage company, learning the franchising business, really starting to manage marketing and lots of different markets across the US. Learned a ton about business, learned a ton about what I don't know about business, which led me to business school and eventually the opportunity to join a government contractor, which is really never where I saw myself. But I think it's kind of one of those ultimate things that if you live in the Washington, D.C. area, it is so prevalent in the industry. It's just a matter of time before you kind of fall into that. And it was a really nice opportunity for me to have a job that was on the contractor side, a little bit more 9 to 5 because I was going to business school at night. And so I wanted the ability to turn off when I walked out of the office. And when you're working in secure, locations, you can't take work home with you. So it was an opportunity for me to be able to focus on my studies at night, learn the contracting business during the day. And when I, finished my MBA, kind of squarely stepped into that consulting role in the government space and have never looked back.
That's fantastic. Well, and I'm sure that all of those different perspectives and experiences in your past help to drive the way you implement solutions now.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us. Today's topic is utilizing the company website as a strategic growth driver. And for those of you who are new to us, the format of this podcast is the first half, we talk about that topic from the macro lens, talking strategy with CXO at government contractors. And then the second half of the show, we will look at the same topic from a micro lens. So let's jump right in.
Absolutely.
Um, as you know, now that you've been in government contracting for a little while, many GovCons treat their website as a digital brochure, really just a formality of having a business. In your position, I know you guys recently went through a rebrand. What kind of business case did you have to make to position the website as a growth driver, something more important that really needed to be cared and nurtured?
Yeah. So we went through a couple iterations of growth and redo of the website. We can sort of talk about those a little bit later. But the website, when I joined the company about 5 years ago, had actually just recently gone through a rebrand. And it was a little bit of an embarrassing moment because website and modernization and digital, experiences is part of the platform that we have and part of the core capabilities. And they had an outdated website. And so there was a question when someone was reviewing a proposal that who's this company? They're saying that they can do website redesigns, but they don't have a good website themselves. And so it was one of these direct reflections of our capabilities that we couldn't even care for our own website. And she's like, why would we hire these fools? They don't even have a website from this century. So, fast forward through my tenure here, I came on to build the marketing function and really sort of figure out how do we position ourselves for growth and scale, and how do we integrate marketing into sort of full stack of the life cycle of the business development cycle, because it's a very complex cycle. It's very long. There's a lot of different touch points that go into it that you don't traditionally see on the private sector and, selling products and things like that. So how I think about it is, a website is your first and sometimes your only opportunity to talk to a customer. And I think it's a missed opportunity in a lot of spaces because people set it, they forget it, their company grows, they have a new capability, something shifts in the administration priority, and they don't say, hey, we have to go back up and update that and make sure we keep it up to date. And, it's an opportunity that's available 24/7. And I think users are looking for more experiences to self-service. They want to be able to have that gut check to say, okay, this company is legitimate. This job opportunity is legitimate. This is a company that, aligns with our core values and capabilities, and we do want to sort of work with them. So you have to have a website that is current to what your company is offering, your culture, and to be able to give someone reassurance that, okay, this is safe to proceed. We do want to start to engage and have a conversation with this company. But if you set it and forget it, they could be looking at a point in time that's no longer reflective of your company.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you mentioned that because I remember, back in the early days when I first started this firm, Piper Strategies, we would go to a prospective client's website and they might not even have an SSL certificate enabled yet they were like a cybersecurity company. And so like the first thing a government buyer would see is not secure with a little like unlocked lock over there in the browser bar. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is such an easy fix. And so it is so important that you like walk the talk, especially when you're, offering that service on your own. In your experience, a lot of small government contractors, like you said, they'll set it and forget it. Like when they open their doors and they create their first logo, they create version 1 of their website. And they're not like posting fresh content regularly or updating it. And sometimes they're even saying, oh, we don't need to optimize our website for search. Like they only come to our website if they already know us. And so I'm wondering just what you think about how government buyers even utilize websites, when they utilize them, how they find them, and how they're buyer expectations may have shifted over the past 5 years?
Yeah, I think in general, buyers and customers are all looking for that commercial level experience that you have when you go to a website. So they want it to be mobile first. They want the navigation to be simple. They want it to be clear and easy to be able to answer the questions that they might have, to either use it as a support and proof point to say, hey, this company said they did XYZ. It's on their website. They've got case studies. They've got proof points. They're clearly doing this at other similar agencies. We feel comfortable continuing to evaluate them because what they said in their proposal is matching what they're saying on the website. But it's also an opportunity to catch partners and recruits too, because at the end of the day, especially on the services side, there's not too much that's differentiating the core work that we're doing for our customers. We're all coming in, we're helping you sort of digest what's the issue or what's the compliance measure that you need to figure out how to move into your business, or what's the legacy system we need to move off on. But they're looking for the right people, and they want to enjoy the companies that they're working with. And that's the same on the recruit side. So our audience is probably 50% recruits, 25% customers in the evaluation phase, and then another 25% on partners who are looking to potentially work with our company. And I think that's such an important market that a lot of people miss, is that in government contracting, it's very rare that you're going alone at a bid. You usually have some partners that you're going after with. And so it's so important to find customers and partners that align with your values and your culture, because that's just going to increase the results and the impact that you have for the customer at the end of the day. So really, I think all of the good things that you're seeing on the private sector side, we can absolutely take those lessons learned and put them on the public sector side, and make sure that these are good user experiences, that people can use it as a self-service model and a checkpoint to verify that you're a mature company, you've got the right values, you've got the right people to be able to move you forward in sort of their decision-making funnel.
I love that. And the talent brand is so important because, like you said, like 50% of your web visitors could be potential candidates. So we were talking a bit about like how people find us. And I know traditionally we've always invested in search engine marketing and on-page SEO. And, now with the rise of AI and answer overview results, I'm just wondering what you're seeing in that space related to AI-based search engines.
Yeah, and that's something that we're trying to figure out, not only for ourselves, but sort of for our customers as well who are dealing with that. I think, we're still very much, let's optimize for search and site, and we want people to have a good experience on our site. So I want you to interact with a post on LinkedIn or Instagram, want to learn more, and go to our website and start to explore around and see what other opportunities there are for you. So making sure that we're optimized for those keywords, those terms, things that are important to the administration, all of those words are popping related to our core customers and our core capability areas. And then the recruitment side of the house, what kind of talent are we looking to bring in the door? We're starting to dip our toe into, now that most people are getting more search results from LLMs, chatbots, other things like that, how do we design a site that is optimized for both the human and the robot? Because I don't want to have a website that's not usable and aesthetically friendly to our humans who are still searching on these websites. But we want to make sure that we're not limiting our ability to show up in those conversations from, when you're chatting ChatGPT or Claude or whoever you use to find the right answer. So it's a happy medium balance that we're really trying to figure out with our teams, and our content and UX team and digital experience team are really doing a lot of that heavy research to see how do we integrate this for our government customers. And I'm graciously accepting the research that they're doing to figure out how do we leverage this for our own website as well.
That's fabulous. So in a crowded B2B and B2G IT market, how can a company differentiate themselves with their website, since that's often the first touch?
Yeah, I think it's about being authentic to yourself, and making sure that you're able to show people, here's what we do, here's who we are, here's how we do it, here's the experience that you're going to get online and in person. So we do a lot of work to make sure that that experience lines up both virtually and in the in-person experiences that our customers have. But we've done over the years a lot of conversations, a lot of facilitated conversations to figure out who we are, what we do, why the RIVA experience is a better one, why we're the better partner than other customers. And that's a living conversation. That's something that we have almost annually at the leadership level, because our customers continue to evolve, their needs to continue to evolve. We have new technologies being introduced. And so the vision and all of the things that we set last year may not still be a reflection of who we are. And it's been really cool to see the evolution. When I joined RIVA, we were an 8A, small disadvantaged business. How we marketed ourselves and the platform that worked in that does not work in the mid-tier market, where we're now competing against these massive companies in this full and open market. So we've had to go through this strategic evolution of how do we present ourselves to be successful as we approach and now are off the small business cliff into this big space where I'm competing against marketing teams who have many more zeros in their budgets, many more people on their teams, lots of agencies, lots of resources, specialized talent, when I've got a tiny team of 3 and our business development team. So it's been really cool to see that, but we've been very, very intentional about how we're trying to stack up our brand and continue to be memorable. I think that's the point, is we want to be authentic. We want to be seen as trusted advisors. We're not pushing specific platforms or tools. We're really here to help our customers solve problems. And on the flip side, on the recruitment side, we want people to have a customized experience. We want you to come and do great work and build the career that sort of makes the most sense for you, and have abilities to go back and forth between corporate and billable and try new things out, because sometimes you get so pigeonholed in sort of what your little silo is, you don't know that your skill set could translate somewhere else. So we always want to have the ability for career mobility, and that's a big part of our recruitment messaging as well.
That's fantastic. And I love that you have taken the time to evolve your public perception as you've navigated various inflection points in your growth, because it is so critical. And who you were, even if you were still competing the same way, for sole source works, for example, or set asides, the company has changed. The people have changed. The service offerings has changed. The market has changed. And so it's really just shows how important it is to keep up with the times and make sure that you're always putting your best foot forward, with your digital footprint, I guess. Do you have any case studies of times when the website has, it's come back through channels that the website was a major impact in hiring the right person or getting the right partner or even winning a government contract?
Yeah, so we've got 2 case studies sort of on different sides of the house. One is for an existing client for ours. We have a big footprint there. We're looking to expand into some other offices and opportunities. And so as we have some of these bids and source selection and you have RFIs and things coming, we make sure that we're very in line with our capture team to be able to put together campaigns that are supporting the knowledge that they're pulling as they're learning more about the opportunities and our customers and what their pain points are and opportunities. So we had a lot of content because it was an existing customer that we could repackage so that as it's going through the RFI, RFP, all of these phases, that we are being very intentional about building in the messaging that was going to resonate depending on where that was with the key stakeholders in terms of what they were important for. So through the pipeline, we got a comment back from someone that said, "We're really excited to review your submission." Oh, that's wow. Always nice to hear. And then on the flip side, cold customers, not a big thing in our space. Typically that's just not how our business works. And so we actually have invested a ton of time in developing our IDX practice area, which is our integrated digital experience. And that is all things modernization with websites and custom development, things like that. Big practice area for us. And we've done a lot to work with our SVP to put himself forward, make sure he's in the right places, brand his thought leadership. And he actually got a cold call from a customer that said, "Hey, we saw what you did at this agency. We're thinking about taking on a similar project. We'd love to talk to you about it." And he actually thought it was fake because that's how rare this happens in our industry. That's just not how the procurement cycle works. So it was an opportunity to build a new relationship with someone who had seen all of the work that we've done in another agency, because we had done the work to position ourselves as, hey, here's a trusted partner who can help you do this work. So those are two big case studies that I hang my hat on, that marketing does work. We just don't always have the concrete attribution that you can get sometimes on the other side of the house.
Well, congratulations. That's super exciting.
Thank you.
For that last one that you talked about, I have heard of like COTARs, like doing searches and finding people to send like an RFI to. Do you know, for that cold call type client, like what type of person that was, what title, what role within the agency was looking and doing that kind of cold outreach?
That's a super good question. And now I'm going to go back and ask. I'm not sure if they were in the contracting officer or if it was a program manager, but it was definitely one of the two roles that had a need, was looking for customer or contractors that could do similar work.
That's super exciting. So we're talking to CXOs macro level. I thought it was important that we talk a little bit about ownership and alignment. And so really, it sounds like you, as the marketing leader, has very strong ownership and strategy over what is happening with the website, who's looking at it, and all of the inside baseball. In your opinion, who does own that decision, that investment, the technology it's built on, and how do you get that alignment in the company?
Yeah. So in terms of the website and the content, sort of the messaging and all of that part, the buck stops with me. So, marketing has, especially since it's an external thing, right? So anything external that customers see, plus clients can see, that is something that we very squarely hold in marketing, as we have the final say and approval. But we do a lot of work with the stakeholders that own the content or own different areas to make sure that we are making the decisions and positioning things that make the most sense. So work very closely with our solution architects to make sure our capabilities content is in alignment with how they're selling their capabilities and what their current customers are asking for. We work very closely with our people and culture team and anyone who's related to the talent acquisition cycle, that we are putting out content related to our employee base and employee highlights that are promoting the kind of culture and the kind of values and things that we're looking for when we're recruiting top talent. And work very closely with our customer delivery team to pull out those insights, write those case studies, make sure those impact points are there. And then, of course, our business development team and proposal team to make sure that we're hitting on the high notes for any of the accounts that we're going after, anything that's in the capture cycle that we want to make sure that we can support them with the marketing pieces that we need. So there's a ton of insights and a ton of content that we do not own, that we have to maintain those relationships across the organization to make sure that we are telling the best story on behalf of them. So multiple times a year, we'll get those stakeholders either together to have sort of an overarching, hey, is this currently our brand? Is this the right positioning for where we're going and where we're forecasting in the future? Or do we need to make tweaks? And then we'll have those conversations one-on-one with the division leads to say, okay, solutions team, new executive order out. How does that, if it does, impact our cybersecurity area or AI area? And what are the pivots and changes that we need to make sure that this is still in alignment with the priorities are coming and the spending opportunities in the future? In terms of the tech stack, I work very closely with our internal IT team. So we are a WordPress shop, but we're actually a Drupal development company. So a little bit of disconnect there, but WordPress is just very, very easy for my internal team to be able to manage. It's very, very user-friendly for non-technical crew. And we have some developers who will support more complex things. But the technology stack, I leave to the technology folks and just give them my requirements in terms of here's how we need to use the product and here how we're using them. You guys tell me what CMS we operate on and make sure that it's continued to be secure and we have all the right certificates and that the website is maintained. And if it goes down, we're able to get it up very quickly.
Absolutely. That's great. And have you put together like a governance plan for the website content, how often it should be reviewed and recalibrated or refreshed?
Yeah, we try to make sure that everything gets touched at least once a year, and we've got it on a rotating calendar. So again, very small team that we have internally, and we've got a lot of priorities across the stakeholders that we're working with as well. So we try to be thoughtful about our interactions with them to make sure that it aligns with times that make sense in the government fiscal year to start to update that content, or the calendar year. We do a lot of things by calendar year, even though we're tracking on the fiscal year. So we will engage with our solutions team at least once a year to make sure that their content is still up to date and the capability slicks matches the landing page, matches all of those things. The only injection point, as I mentioned, is if a new executive order or some sort of OMB memorandum comes down that is directly related to a solution area, that is something that we will shred immediately with that team and make sure that we are updating all the places where that may have an impact on how we're positioning our messaging. So that will take us out of alignment on that, but we'll try to make sure that we touch that at least annually. And we're in account planning season as well. So that will be a good time for us to connect with our BD team about how do we want to position our customer facing pages, which case studies do we need to work with the delivery team to pull out some better insights for, because we know have some opportunities in the pipeline coming down that we want to make sure we're positioned and ready for. So yeah, it doesn't have to be daunting, especially if you have a smaller site. You can put things on a regular annual cycle to make sure that you have the ability to at least take a look at it. And sometimes you don't need to update it. Not everything does need to be updated every single year, but at least it's a refresh point for your team to make sure, is this still in alignment? And we have a very similar calendar for longer term thought leadership pieces. So we typically try to evaluate any white papers that are out in the 6 to 12 month time frame. And then any blog content that's not specific, that's a little bit more on the thought leadership side, we'll put it on a 3 to 6 month recycle. So any of that evergreen content that we generated to reshare that, we'll take a look at that on a rotating calendar to make sure that this is still in alignment with what's trendy, what's current, or if we can sort of archive it and move on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's so critical. I remember one of the website rebuilds we did when I was at a big brand, and I think the vendor that we hired to help us do it counted something like 1,200 pages on our website because nothing ever expired. It was like it went up there and it just stayed up there forever. And it was during that process that we were like, oh my God, we need to set up a governance policy. So we look at this stuff and make decisions proactively at some regular intervals.
Yeah, your CMS is not a storage unit.
Yeah, it was like a digital asset management system.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So before we wrap up this section and let our CXOs go, everything we're talking about here says that the website is not a set it, forget it. It is a living, breathing thing that requires continual attention. So just if you were talking to your CEO, how did you impress upon him that it is critical to think of the website as a living asset and invest in it that way?
Yeah, it's your biggest piece of branding and content that you have out there, and to not nurture it and keep it fresh with your company as it evolves is a missed opportunity, because a lot of the interactions you have with government customers are points in time. You'll give a capabilities briefing, you'll submit a proposal. That is a representation of who you were at that moment when you wrote and submit that piece. But your website's living and breathing. And so you're not constrained to those confinements of compliance or deadlines or turnaround times. You have a completely open box and all the possibilities to be able to present yourself in a way that, again, is true to your culture, is true to the work that you're doing, and is able to keep up with the times and the trends. So use that opportunity. It's your biggest piece of asset that you have. And putting that investment in it, there's so many ways that you can slice and dice that content to be able to reuse it on different formats. So don't sleep on the investment that you put in the website, because it will eventually end up saving you a lot of time when you're putting out insights on different channels.
Absolutely. And for executive leaders focused on the bottom line and attribution and all of that, what kind of metrics and business outcomes should they really be focused on?
Yeah, so a little bit of a different pivot here, but again, because we have a very long sales cycle in the government, we're talking 18 to 36 months. There's like hundreds of touch points across in-person, digital. Like it's just very, very hard to have a very clear attribution model. You can't give credit to one person or one blog for winning a deal. You just can't. There's too many touch points. So how I like to approach it in terms of measurement is how quickly can I deploy my business development or delivery team to turn around and be successful to have that conversation? So for me, when we have all the content and we're just able to very quickly pull it back together, customize it, reframe it, and send it right back out, that puts my business development and my frontline team in a great place to look like they are prepared, that they have the right solutions, that they can be a trusted advisor. Or if they don't have the answers immediately, they can get them. And I think that level of urgency and customer service to our clients and customers means a lot, because you're looking for someone who is trusted, who can do the work for you, and to be able to quickly be able to have those conversations, to have those answers to prove you can do this work, has moved the needle for us in many opportunities.
That's great. So the responsiveness and reaction time is really critical there. Before we pause, can you just give any tips you have on how CXOs can set up their website to directly lead to pipeline growth, contract wins, lead gen, anything like that that's possible?
Yeah, I think you just have to be very in alignment with what your pipeline says and what the calendar is. Again, we attend all the growth meetings. We have made a place for marketing in all those conversations about the key bids and customer expansion opportunities. And so I am trying to work about 6 months ahead of where their content is dropping. So if a proposal is dropping, in December, we're already working on what do we have in-house, what can we customize, what do we need to develop with those stakeholders to make sure that when that is an evaluation or someone is considering hiring our company, that all of that matches on the digital experience that they're having. So being very thoughtful about keeping up with what's in your CRM system, making sure your content calendars align, and being able to pivot, because we know the government kind of drops things when they want to drop. So you can be as prepared as you want to be, but having that gold standard of library and that content you can pull from really gives you a lot of flexibility to be able to customize very, very quickly when you have a change in deadline or you have a change in priority or an executive order that comes out, to be able to make sure that you're agile enough to keep up with the trends.
That's a great reminder. I love the sales and marketing alignment, because if you didn't have a seat at the table at those growth meetings, you might not be able to stay ahead of the curve like that. So thank you so much, Alex. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the same topic on how to implement it from the micro level. This episode of Branding the Beltway is brought to you by Piper Strategies and Orange Slices. Piper Strategies, marketing that moves the needle. Piper Strategies is a full-service creative agency for leaders serious about growth. We decode the complex, translating mission-driven work into clear, compelling narratives. Our clients expand their reach, communicate with impact, and earn trust in competitive markets so they can win more work. We don't just deliver results, we build your internal marketing muscle. With Piper Strategies, clients grow with us until they outgrow us. It's a partnership-first, un-agency approach that not only gets you noticed and builds credibility, but also scales your brand and your team. Learn more at piperstrategies.com. Orange Slices, fresh intelligence for B2G success. Cut through the noise with Orange Slices, a trusted source for public sector insights, teaming opportunities, and procurement intel. With a playful name and a powerful platform, they're serious about making data accessible and usable so the entire GovCon community can thrive. For resources, visit orangeslices.ai. Welcome back to Branding the Beltway. I'm with Alex Love from RIVA Solutions, and we're talking about how to build your website as a strategic growth driver. Alex, thanks so much. We talked at such a high level about why CXOs should be investing in the website and who should own it and how to get alignment. But let's talk now about how to scope the work. When you're deciding between whether to do a refresh or a rebuild or just iterate in place on what you already have, what are some of the criteria that you use to make that decision?
Yeah, and we've made a lot of missteps in the past couple of years, and I'm happy to dive into some of those. But I think the age is a driving factor. So typically, a website that's 4 to 5 years old is considered a little bit of a dinosaur. A lot of the technology has changed, a lot of the usability has changed, sort of design styles have changed. So if you're in the 4 to 5 year area, I think you're very seriously looking at we need to redesign the site. And I think moving CMS systems kind of depends on if you have pain points, like is your site crashing or you have bad load times, it's not as mobile responsive. So your tech team should be able to take those requirements and say, hey, maybe we're not on the best hosting or CMS site. If we move over to a different platform, users will have a better experience to be able to interact with our website and get what they need to do. So I think age determines a lot. And I think it's also something that you need to take into consideration your business growth as well. So I talked about, when I joined the company, we were a small disadvantaged business. The website that we had was very reflective of, we're a small business, please hire us. We can do basically anything, just hire us. And now that we're in the mid-market and have graduated that space, we have to be a lot more laser focused on here are the capabilities where we do work very well. Here are the customer sets that we're looking for, because we have to go and compete against these massive companies who, have a lot more capabilities and staff and marketing dollars and things like that. So I think, again, if your company has gone through significant growth or maturity in that time frame too, I think that is another case for why you would want to start over and redesign versus refresh.
That's a good point. And you talked about the performance, and one thing I want to dive more into, we talked a little bit in the first half about setting goals and what you want the website to accomplish. And so you mentioned in that last response about user experience. And I feel like, again, when we talk about that Gen 1, Gen 2 website as being a digital brochure, there weren't really any calls to action, right? We weren't pushing users to deeper content in the site. If they stumbled upon it, they were just lucky, right? And so how can marketers pragmatically create that UX path on the website so that it's easily navigable for the user?
Yeah. Well, thankfully, I have a lot of very skilled content strategists on our billable side of the house. So they were able to help sort of think through when we were going through the redesign, what does the appropriate information architecture IA look like? How do we make sure the navigation matches? We went through that audit of, do these pages still matter? Are we carrying this content for no reason? And really had a lot of deep conversations about, is this the right term? Are we categorizing this content correctly? And where are there areas to expand and grow? So I've taken a lot of that knowledge, and we work a lot in Miro to kind of map out visually what this looks like. And so anytime I'm talking to our solutions team about a thought leadership piece that they want to put together, or maybe a new landing page or something related to a solution, my question is always, well, what's the next piece of it? Because you want your site to be cyclical. As you said, I never want someone to hit a dead end. I always want them to have the opportunity to click and continue and expand more. So every blog post that we put out, there's a link to another blog post if you want to continue to read, or maybe there's a link to a white paper or something else that you can download. So it's just having a good sense of what is the current content pieces that you're really pushing, the capability areas, the places where you need to make an indent, and then being able to sort of map that out and say, here's an area of opportunity, here's where we can pull this thread over here, and always looking for those opportunities to continue to link, so that people just continue to spend all of the time on our website.
Absolutely. And I know I'm going really deep in the weeds here, but I'm just curious, since you've put so much thought and effort into this, do you have like a specific inbound, outbound link strategy and do you manage that, or does someone in corporate IT manage that?
Honestly, I manage a lot of it now. We have, like I said, with the administration changes and sort of a little bit of the instability, our team has shrunk and changed a little bit this year in terms of how we're positioning ourselves. So we're getting a lot more ingrained as a shared service, working across like proposals and other business development opportunities. So I don't have as much of a dedicated content team as I once did. So that being said, a lot of it lives in my mind, but we're starting to do a better job of tracking and auditing where the stuff is going, having these lists, making those opportunities to, again, when we're having those conversations with our solutions team, they don't remember what they published last month, but I certainly do. And so when I get those drafts back, I'm always looking for those opportunities and windows to say, okay, here's an opportunity for us to link back to something that we had already published. Here's what's in the calendar. And having that audit schedule that we talked about in the first half is really helpful because that is a complete content audit of what is still current in our eyes. And so that is a good opportunity for me to filter through and say, okay, maybe this is not a part of a series and it's not obvious to me where this internal link should go, but there is an opportunity to link it to something that we had already written. So again, that content cycle continues and people always have the opportunity to click and continue to learn more.
I love that. And again, I'm so in the weeds right now, but now I'm just curious, and I know I'm going off script here, but when when you have like an outbound link, so it's going to content not on your site, right? Do you like to open that in a separate window, or is that your recommendation?
Yeah, and I think even most of the time, I think that's the default for even the internal links too.
Oh, good.
Because when you're reading a blog, sometimes you get that link in the middle. And if you click off, then you sort of end their opportunity to finish whatever they are already looking at or the opportunity to click another link. So I'm a big reader. I always want to learn more. So I would prefer to finish the piece that I'm reading and then go in and jump into the next piece. So yeah, that's my default, is always open to a new window.
Yeah, I vacillate with internal links when I'm taking them to other stuff on my site because I know it's an easy back button. But sometimes when they go off my site, then I wonder, how do I get them back? So
Yeah, I think it depends. If it's like a call to action link and there's a finality to it, then sure, you can they can click back if they want to. But if it's embedded in a piece of content and there is an opportunity for them to continue reading, I think that's when I would default to the new window.
I love that. I love that. So, resourcing. You mentioned that you don't have the big giant team that other companies that you're competing with have. So, how do you get the work done? Do you do it all in-house? Have you outsourced before? What's your experience with that?
So we did both, and I'll give you kind of the evolution of where we came around. So a couple of years ago, when we were at that critical inflection point of needing to design a new website to match our growth trajectory, knowing that we were a year or two away from graduating 8A, we wanted to start that brand process early so that once we actually did graduate, we had already had the perception and the pivot in the market that we were already a large company. And that worked out really well for us in our favor. So we started that process a little bit early and looking at just the cycles that we knew we didn't have with our project teams, very, very in the weeds on, customer work and having a small marketing team. It was something that had a hard deadline in my mind to it. We had that graduation wall coming up. And so I made the business case to say, yes, these are absolutely things that we can do in-house, but the timeline concerns me because there's a lot of work that needs to go into this full redesign of the website. Not that we can't do it, but maybe it would be nice to have an external party just for the sake of scope and timeline so that we know we're getting it done by the time that we said. So we went out and said, great, let's get some quotes. Let's kind of look at a variety of offerings. And we got some high balls and some low balls and finally ended up on a company sort of in the mid-tier, still in the six-figure investment. So still a heavy investment that we were willing to make because it was a complete shift in sort of how we were presenting our company. So we felt like it was important to have somebody to really help us with that messaging because we at the time had a lot of personalities that were sort of differing on where they thought the company should go. So we made the investment. It just wasn't a good one. I'll just put it that lightly. I think at the end of the day, we ended up with a website that was okay. It definitely solved some of the problems that we had identified, but I think sometimes when you rely on an external party who just doesn't know your company as well, the messaging can get a little muddy. And one of the things that I thought that I had built into the SOW was all of the content should be written by the contractor and should be optimized for web, for SEO. Because I've done that before. I knew what was on my plate. As the only real writer on the team, I just didn't have the capabilities and the cycles to do that. My interpretation of all of the content written was wildly different than their interpretation of that. And so we got down to the wire where they were assuming that we were writing this content and they were building pages and components without the content. And so I ended up crashing over like the period of a weekend, building and writing these pages on the fly because they had only identified 3 pages that they said were critical that were included in the scope. And so what we ended up with was this mismatch of we had components that they had designed that weren't designed with the content in mind. And I was crashing on writing as much content as I could without having somebody to help guide and make sure that it was optimized for what we were going for. So, that led to delays, scope creep. I had to get my developers in line. I mean, it just ended up being sort of a very messy situation, which we were trying to prevent by doing this as an external project. So along the way, we got the website out. Honestly, it looked a lot better than what we had. And so it was a good step forward, but being as this is a service that we provide, we just weren't happy with the results at the end of the day. It didn't feel like it reflected the quality of work that we can do for our customers. So I made a lot of friends with our developers and content and UX UI people across this as they were helping me sort of on the fly fix some of these problems. And so the team came together once we launched the website, and we had a little bit of a gap in terms of the cycles that they were working on billable projects. We came together and said, I think we can do this better and we can get this to a place that we're really proud of. So because we had a little bit of a gap between contracts, I was able to assemble an actual internal Tiger team to help fix some of these issues and continue to evolve the website to a place where we're actually very comfortable with it right now. And part of it was like chicken and egg, right? We were still working on our delivery model and some of these branded pieces that were in flight while we were doing the website development. So again, I think we pushed it a little bit because of the small business maturity piece that we needed to get something out. Having looked back, maybe it would have made more sense for us to sort of crystallize some of that, higher level marketing messaging and frameworks and things before we pushed the redesign. But that was a part of the integration into the second phase 2, if you will, internal redo, is that we were able to sort of crystallize that, get the trademarks on it, push that messaging, and then that sort of became the moniker that you now see on our website, which is Optimal Outcomes. So that really drove the redesign of components that maybe didn't display the content the way that we wanted it to, and helped us refine the content strategy related to how does this tie back to optimal outcomes, which is how we help our clients, deliver on their programs. So yeah, we've done both. Like I said, I've definitely had success with vendors in the past at other organizations, but again, because it's so core to what we do at RIVA, we just felt like at the end of the day, it was not something that we were proud of. And so we wanted to take that in-house. So I have a very, very small Tiger team that is continuing to work on that because we weren't able to get everything out in the first pass of it. There's a lot more cool things that we want to integrate on the recruitment side of the house, culture side of the house. So if you look at our content, you know that we have a mascot. So Alpac is our little traveling mini alpaca. And we have a ton of really cool pictures of Alpac across the globe because people take him on trips with us and send us the pictures. So I really want to be able to integrate an interactive map that shows not only where Team RIVA is based, since we're a remote first company, we have people across the United States, but where he's sort of been in the world as well. So that is like in my nice to have future development when we've got some cycles. But I wouldn't have that flexibility with a vendor. That would lock me into a huge contract and more money. So always very helpful to have an internal team that can help you.
That's great. I love that. And that a good business case for why you chose WordPress as your platform too. So you could manage it on your own without interrupting the client delivery team. And I love that you mentioned phases, because very often we do client work in phases like that, because you have an immediate need that you have to solve for, but you're not all the way there. And you don't want to like spend 3 to 6 months building this Goliath website when you could get a phase 1 version of it out sooner. So content and engagement. I know we talked a bit about some types of content already in the first half. I didn't know if you could explain a little bit more if there are specific types of content that have been able to drive more engagement on your website than others, and how you really balance getting the right kind of content on the site that can be shareable or each stage of the funnel, et cetera?
Yeah. So for any piece of thought leadership, longer form blogs or white papers, we always have a template that we'll follow. So we'll at least generate 4 different insights that will go out on social. A lot of our traffic is generated from our social platforms, as that is our big focus area. We have a very large LinkedIn community. We're like working on the Instagram side. It's a little bit more fun on that side of the house. But so we see a lot of engagement come over for social, and the content that works best on social is those short form, like snippet pieces. So the carousels that people can kind of slide through and decide they want to continue to learn more. We're starting to do a lot more video content too. So as people are sort of scrolling, doom scrolling through their phone, they can hit a video and they can click to learn more. So again, it's kind of that web of, we always have the longer form piece on the website, but we do a lot of work to make sure that we're cutting it and snipping it into more digestible formats that are easier for people to digest on a LinkedIn or on a Instagram, or, insert your network there. So that if they're interested in jumping back and learning more, that means that we have the hook and that people are more interested in then, again, downloading the full white paper or getting the slick or whatever the action may be. But yeah, we spend a ton of time making sure that we understand how do we translate this into digestible content for social.
Yeah, so content layering sounds like it's the answer. So I know when we talked about web governance and content review cycles, we were talking about like the freshness of your content, but I also wonder with regard to just, it's like recency and frequency is part of the algorithm. So like, do you have some goals for your team on how frequently new blogs are posted, or how many press releases go up each month or each quarter? Do you have like activity metrics you're trying to hit with that?
We've done both. So we did when we were having difficulties, when the team was getting stood up and we were sort of forging our path and sort of showing the value of marketing, that those kind of metrics are very helpful to get people to engage with you as you build those expectations, and that like a solutions architect needs to publish 2 white papers a year, then that sort of gives them something to hang on and think about it. But now that we've been able to sort of prove the value and build ourselves into it, those kind of metrics sometimes are just not helpful, because I never want to publish a piece of content just to publish a piece of content. I would rather it be something that adds value to our user or builds on a story or is highlighting something that is of importance to the business. So because we've shifted and we've built all of those relationships and now have regular checkpoints with our stakeholders, that problem kind of disappeared. And we're now better in tune with the proposal cycle and when we know people are going to be busy. So if we've got a big bid out, I know that I'm not going to be like, hey, your blog is late. So I have to be a little bit flexible on that calendar. But because we've also built up that evergreen content library, if something falls off that is a new thought leadership piece that's working, I always have something in the back end to be able to promote that instead. So it's taken a long time to get to that point. And I think teams get stuck in that cycle of everything needs to be new, but there is always a way that you can refresh something to reuse it. So you can take that pressure off yourself to say, I have to generate something net new, when it's maybe I just have to refresh this or put a little bit new of a spin on it, some new graphics, new sort of engagement piece with your audience to make it new for someone else. So yeah, we've ditched those, but it took a long time to sort of move away from those kind of metrics.
That's great. So in addition to the content layering, we're looking at like upcycling and repurposing content we already have and giving it new life. Excellent. Well, I thank you so much for your time. Hopefully all our CXOs and government marketers that were listening got a few tidbits they can take away and put into their next website strategy. Thanks, Alex.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Branding the Beltway. If you're looking for an outsourced marketing partner or fractional marketing leadership who truly gets the GovCon sector, Piper Strategies is the team to know. We're not just here to deliver, we're here to empower. For resources or to inquire, visit piperstrategies.com.